health ministries, as also the Spirit of Prophecy says, is the driving wedge into the communities, opening hearts of people and bringing the gospel. So thank you so much for sacrificing the time. I know that many of you have traveled quite a bit to be here. I know that many of you have decided not to be with your family, and they have let you be here. Thank you so much for doing that. Before I pray, I just would like to read a promise that God gives to people like you who have decided to give their time, to give their effort to minister to God and to His saints. Apostle, most probably Paul, the author of Hebrews, says in Hebrews chapter 6 verse 10, "For God is not unrighteous to forget your work." Listen, sometimes we think we are doing something and nobody notices. And maybe even our churches do not thank us. If human beings have not noticed, the Bible says God notices what you are doing for Him. And the apostle continues, "He will not forget your work. He will not forget your labor. He will not forget your love, which you have shown toward His name, in loving and ministering to the saints of the Most High." So God is not forgetting, and today as you join us here, God is joining you. Not just to be here because we have gathered here in His name, but also to bless you in what you are doing and to bless your efforts in your churches, in your communities, so that people will be reached and Jesus is going to be brought closer to their hearts. I would like to ask you in the beginning, because you're going to be doing a lot of sitting anyways, why don't we get up? And I would like to ask you to bow your heads with me in prayer and to invite the author of all the ministries to be among us. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the traveling mercies you've given to my brothers and sisters on the way here. And now that we have gathered here, we would like to glorify you and to ask you to join us, to bless our efforts, to bless this new beginning of our health ministry in Ohio. And Lord, to also glorify yourself in our efforts that we are going to put together in our communities so that people will get to know you through the health ministries we are going to be trained here to do. Humbly asking for your presence, all together said, Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. And I don't have to introduce a lot, but just want to tell you that I'm proud that Ron is here. And the president of our Ohio Conference, the new president of Ohio Conference, would like to also welcome you and share with you a few words.
It's always good to be in Worthington. I've had a chance a few times. Really appreciate what's going on. I want to welcome you, the health ministries leaders from around our conference. Really glad that you are, as I look back, Ohio Health Ministries. It's not just health, it's ministry. And I want to thank you for what you've already been doing and what God is going to do through you to reach others. Because we want people to have a more abundant life now. But what we are most concerned, and that's why that word ministry is so important, is that they would have an eternity, that we are making friends for eternity. So thank you for what you are doing. In evangelism, there's no way around it that it's when people feel and sense a need that gives you the opportunity to share with them. And there are a lot of people in our society that don't even know of their need for Jesus Christ, but they are aware of their need for better health. And I think it's a beautiful thing when Adventist Christians make friends with them, help them at their place of need, and do it in such a way that they want to know what is making a difference besides your diet in your experience of a joyful life. And that opens the door to share Jesus. So I just want to pray for you as leaders, and that our health work will truly be ministry for now, but also for eternity. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for the commitment represented here today. A beautiful spring day, Sunday, and Lord, we've not had a lot of these days yet here in Ohio. It's been a long winter, but they have come apart because they are committed to working with you to make other people's lives better. I want to ask that you would equip them, not only with the right information and help us to work as a team together here in Ohio, but that your Holy Spirit would equip us to share Jesus in this ministry, and that people will be saved, and we will spend eternity with them, Lord, because of what you do through Health Ministries here. Now I ask that you bless this day, set aside for training, for inspiration. I want to thank you for Dan. I believe you have given us the right person at the right time to lead us here in this conference. And I am thrilled with his excitement, his energy, and his youthfulness. Help us to work together as one with you in the Spirit and see great things done in your name and in your power, I pray in Jesus' name. Being a new conference president is unhealthy. Confession's good for the soul. I've been drinking water through a fire hose since I arrived, and I'm going to be at 5 different areas today within our conference. So I'll only be with you a short time. I've got adventurers, and then I go up north. I have to meet with 3 different churches. I actually look forward to when things settle down, and I'll have to come listen in depth because I need health already, but after the next few weeks and months, I'm going to really need health. Anyway, so blessings on you.
Thank you, Pastor. Well, I have to say that it's not lost on me that you all gave of your time and talents to come and be with us today. I want to thank especially those that volunteered their time to help us get this conference going, those that helped stuff the packets you have and showed up early to unlock the door, to prepare the food. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make a conference like this successful, and I'm very, very thankful to our team in Worthington. So I'm going to start by just acknowledging a few people that throughout the day I hope you'll get a chance to visit with as we try to foster relationships between us. And you've already met the pastor of our conference, the shepherd of our conference, Pastor and President Halverson, Yulian Filipov and Bobby McGee, our pastors here in Worthington. My co-director in Worthington of the Worthington Health Ministries, Marge Hay, is right here. Over here we have Elder Kennedy Dulo, also in a white shirt, and he is our outreach, is it community service, community outreach? Community outreach director for the church, and does a very good job. We also have Lulu over here. Lulu, raise your hand. Lulu is from the African Seventh-day Adventist Church. She is their Health Ministries Director. They are in the Allegheny West Conference, and they have been our partner as we have moved forward with the most ambitious projects that we have, including the 10TV Health and Fitness Expo in downtown Columbus. I know that we're a small but mighty group this morning. The reason we're using this venue and not a smaller space for our meeting today is basically because we want the content from today to be able to be seen on the internet. So right now we have folks watching around the state and around the world, and I welcome everyone who's watching right now on TV through the internet. I also want to mention that the lectures today will be recorded, so we will hopefully have that available on YouTube in the coming weeks, so that as a resource to you as you go forward, you can come back and look on the content and really kind of see what's going on here. Now, even before I get started, I want to tell you guys something that you don't usually hear from someone who puts together a conference. The breaks, the time in between the lectures, is as important, if not more so important, than the content I'm going to share with you today. The first thing I want to do today is give you all some information. The things that we've been successful with here at Worthington, and some of the strategies you can use to implement a successful, growing, thriving health ministry at your church. But more than that, I want us to start to get to know each other. So you know your colleagues from around the state of Ohio, that you can foster good and positive relationships with people that you can call on and say, hey, I had this thing working out this week and now it's not going so well. You did this last year. How did it go for you? So we can start to have a fellowship of health ministry directors from around the state. We're glad that you're with us today. I'm glad that you get to join us in Worthington. Worthington enjoys a great location in that it's sort of central to the state at the crossroads of Interstate 70 and Interstate 71, making it more convenient than most of the other locations around the state for everyone to be able to come to. And I really, really appreciate you all coming to here today, especially on this beautiful, beautiful spring day. Let's take a second before I move into the presentation any farther. I'd like to go over the yellow folders with you just so we can review some of the content in the folders you got this morning. We'll start on the left-hand side. Now, my background, as I'll tell you in a minute, is that of a nursing educator. My master's is in nursing education, so I'm a teacher kind of by nature. But I don't usually read things when I'm teaching. I usually have more of an outline, and then I speak based on the outline. But I want to read you this letter that I gave to each of you this morning because I think it really summarizes what I want you to take away from today. So welcome to Worthington. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the Worthington Seventh-day Adventist Church and the 2014, hopefully an annual occurrence after this year, Health Ministries Conference. Our purpose today is twofold. First, we hope to provide information that will allow you to grow in a successful health ministry at your home church. Second, we hope to foster relationships of the people from all parts of Ohio who are committed to providing health in their own communities. I believe that the health ministry of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is something that makes our church very special. Our health message helps define who we are in the communities we serve. I hope that today you can take from this conference new ways in which you can reach out and serve your community so that you will be able to build strong relationships with other health leaders and so that together we can grow a healthier Ohio. Let's take a look at the agenda for the day. Just as a high-level overview of what we'll be doing, there's 2 lectures that we're going to do in the morning with a break in between each one. The first lecture is kind of a high-level view of health ministry as ministry, kind of why we do what we do. And I understand that in this, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because you all are health leaders. You are already leading where you are. But I think it's important for us to sort of conceptualize why we do what we do because it helps inform how we move forward into the future. The second lecture will be more focused on the nuts and bolts. A lot of you have already asked questions like, what is CHIP? How do I use it? What about the full plate diet? I want to do a cooking class. How about an exercise class? We're going to take that second lecture and really focus in on each of those programs, advantages, disadvantages, resource requirements to do each one, partnering up with other churches in your area if you need more resources. And then we're going to take a break and come back. And then I've assembled a panel today of experts from around the Central Ohio area in all of these things. And it'll be a chance for you all to ask questions of the panel, things like, how did you pull off your first CHIP program? How many health conferences or health affairs do you do a year? And how many volunteers does it take to make that work? So that as you think of questions, I would encourage you throughout the first 2 lectures to write them down. I often tell this to families in the hospital when they're coming to visit their families in the intensive care unit where I work, because it's easy to forget things once it's time to ask the question. So as you think of questions, take time to write them down so that when it's time to do the panel discussion, you've got a list of things you really want concrete answers to, okay? And then after that, we're going to have a little closing service. And then we have a very exciting lunch today because the chef from Mount Vernon Academy is here. And I don't know if any of you have had his catering before, but it is amazing. He was here for Pastor Ron Halverson when he first came to our church to be interviewed for the position. And he catered the event. And that day I said, you have to come back for this health conference because he really gets healthy living and healthy eating. And he's really committed to it, and he builds it into his practice. So I'm very excited about that. All right, take a look at the last page there. The 2014 Health Ministries calendar. This is for the Ohio Conference. This is my vision for the year, for this year in Ohio, okay? The first thing is today. This conference to help train leaders from around the state to be able to grow and develop and build a successful health ministry here in Ohio. The next event you'll see there is camp meeting. Camp meeting is coming up and we will have resources there. I don't know if I will be speaking yet, but I can tell you there will be a resource booth for sure so that you can tell your parishioners, hey, go check out the health ministry table at the camp meeting, see what you can gain from it, and we'll have lots of information and hopefully helpful information for people that want to learn more about the conference and what we're doing for healthy education for our parishioners. In August is probably the biggest outreach event of the year. This event's for training. That event is for outreach to the community. Last year in downtown Columbus, with the African Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Worthington Seventh-day Adventist Church leading the way, along with volunteers from 6 other churches in Ohio, we saw 775 people. I tell people we round that up and we say we saw 777 people last year at the health fair. But I would really like to see us break 1,000 people this year. I can only do that if I have the resources of the state of Ohio behind us, which means the human resources. So we're going to do a training on August the 10th, which you'll see there, which everyone who wants to volunteer for that should be at. There'll be more coming up on that, and honestly, a good way to find out about what's going on is just to sort of keep an eye on the webpage for the Ohio Conference. There will be an ongoing active link there where you can click on it and see what's going on with the next big thing coming up for Ohio. After that training on the 10th, the 23rd and 24th will be the actual 10 TV Health and Fitness Expo in downtown Columbus at the Convention Center. Last year, our booth had more people come to it than any other booth at the entire convention. We had a line of 30 to 40 people stretching down the hallway, down the, they built like a running track to run around so people could jog during the event. And that whole running track was full of people waiting to come see the Seventh-day Adventists. And we checked cholesterol, we checked blood pressure, we checked glucose, we checked pulmonary function. We did the Harvard step test. And on the spot, people could know their total cholesterol. People on the spot could know their glucose. And I got to tell you that people waited in line, some of them close to an hour, to come through our event. And I can tell you that this year they'll be back, and they're going to know where to go first so they can get that done. So if we can provide the facilities and staffing, I really believe we can see 1,000 people. Now, 2 other things about that conference, or about that event. One, at the end of the event, at the end of going through all these booths and collecting all this information, everybody who wanted to could meet with a physician, a nurse practitioner, or a registered nurse. So they could go over the information they just learned and find out about resources. We also had a resource table set up right there on the main thoroughfare of the conference, and everyone who came by got information on CHIP, information on the full plate diet, information on local Adventist churches, local Adventist schools. We also had Steps to Christ available. So we were doing literature evangelism to the greater Columbus area, and more than just the people we saw, thousands of people throughout the weekend got exposure to the Adventist health ministry and to our basic beliefs as an Adventist church. So we're going to try to grow that even more this year. The last event, coming up in October, I got to keep my eye on the time here too, guys. There we go. Is a retreat at Camp Mohaven. Now, I have to admit, it was actually Dave at Camp Mohaven. This was his brainchild, but the event is going to be mostly focused on our own people. Church members who want to come to a retreat to learn about healthy living, exercising more, drinking more water, cooking healthier, learning things that you can do at work to build more exercise into your day. And it's going to be a weekend retreat at Camp Mohaven. More to come on it, but it's going to be very, very exciting. So this year's goals for us as a conference are threefold. First, today's conference, to train the leaders from Ohio. Second is an outreach opportunity in August to reach out to Ohio and the lay public and teach them healthy habits and give them information about health and expose the Adventist health ministry to a large number of people. The third event is the fall, and that will be the retreat for our parishioners who'd like to come and learn about healthy living. All right. On the left, you guys will have my PowerPoints that we're going to go through today, so please feel free to take notes as we go. I also want to point out that behind that is an evaluation form of today's conference. Please, throughout the day, as you're doing and going and coming, take time to look at it and fill it out. You don't have to put your name on it, but I would like honest feedback about the conference and what you think, so that next year we can grow this conference even bigger and make it more useful to you. The things that we do this year may not be useful to you next year if you've already got a basic understanding of some of the things you need to be successful. So we might need to change it up next year and add or take away or reconfigure it to make it useful to you. And this is your tool to tell me, Dan, please, this is what I want to know, this is what I want to learn. So take time to do that. All right, without further ado, let's move into the content of our first lecture today. I believe in frequent breaks. You guys are going to like that, I think. In paramedic school, before I went to nursing school, I went to paramedic school. We would have lecture for about 50 minutes and then a 10-minute break, and then 50 minutes and a 10-minute break, and that's how it worked the entire training that I went through. In nursing school, they'll make you sit for 4 hours straight, and they'll just talk to you and talk to you and talk to you. How many out there are nurses? Who are my nurses out there? So yeah, right? They just go and go and go, and no one's like, you know, hey guys, I can't absorb any more information until I use the restroom. So believe me, I understand about breaks, and I think that they're healthy. Let's truck on here. All right. Our keynote address this morning is called "Why Health Ministry is Ministry," and this is a key question. And I got to be honest with you, I'm going to lay some of my cards on the table. You're going to get to see a little bit of my theology as we talk about this. But I want you to understand my perspective, where I'm coming from, and where I'd like to see us all sort of move together as we try to evangelize Ohio and promote health. The verse I picked for this section I really like. So whatever you eat or drink, or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Please don't misunderstand me for a second. I do not believe that whether or not you choose or not choose to eat meat or eat veggie links or eat Big Franks has anything to do with your salvation. That comes solely from your relationship with Jesus Christ. He is the one who died for you. He is the one who gives you salvation. Amen? All right. I don't want that to be misunderstood today, okay? So that is where I'm coming from on this. I want you to live healthy. God wants you to live healthy. God wants you to have the best body, the best health you can possibly have. But it's your relationship with Him, because of what He did, that you are saved, not because of what you did. Dan has no power to save his soul at all. The only reason that I believe I am saved today is because of what Christ did for me on Calvary. Okay? That being said, I don't want to miss that point, because out there are lots of people that believe the Adventist church thinks that you're saved because of what you do. And I used to go to my grandparents' church in Florida, and they, I think, were like a Baptist church, a Southern Baptist church. Every single time I went there, and this was at a Baptist church, I got a lecture on grace from the sermon, from the pulpit. Every week we would go there and visit my grandparents in Florida growing up, because they really believe that Adventists believe in redemption by works. So the lay public out there has that perception of us. So it's important for us not to put the cart before the horse, okay? Enough about that for now. So usually when you go to a conference in medicine or in nursing, we always talk about the speakers so you can know their perspective, where they're coming from, what training they have, and if they have any biases. So this is me in a nutshell. I have an associate's degree as a paramedic, an associate's degree as a nurse. I have a bachelor's degree from Kettering in health professions. Are there any Kettering people out there? All right, good. So I've got my bachelor's degree from Kettering. I have a second bachelor's degree in nursing. I also have a master's degree in nursing from Andrews. Any Andrews people? I know there's at least a couple. I have a master's degree from Andrews in nursing education, and now I'm currently a PhD student at Andrews. I'm studying leadership. I didn't think I could do another degree in nursing. I thought I might just go crazy, so I decided to do something else. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm currently enrolled in that program. At work, my work life, I am currently an assistant nurse manager in medical intensive care at Ohio State University. There's a team of 4 of us on our management team, and we oversee 2 ICUs, about 200 employees, and we work in a high-level intensive care unit as a referral facility for most of the state of Ohio. I think anything north of probably Mansfield goes probably to the clinic. Anything south of the Cleveland Clinic, I should say. Anything in this part of Ohio, Kentucky, some of Indiana, all of that is, all those medical cases come to where I work. So SARS, when SARS was a big thing, swine flu, all that kind of stuff, that all comes to my unit, and that's where they're treated in the state of Ohio. Anyway, we got a big medical school, nursing school, all that stuff too. Okay, that's me. In my church life, I am an elder here at this church, proud to be so, and I serve on the church board. I'm the co-director of the health ministries here with Marge Hay. And I also have the privilege of serving as the school board chairman right now. We're very excited. Our school's growing. We have 25 new students registered for next year. 25 new students beyond what we have this year. So we're very excited about that. I also served on the search committee to find our new conference president. I could probably take that off of there now. Check mark. Welcome, Ron. We're glad you're here. And then my newest title, I think it's actually Health Ministries Coordinator, but I'm going to say that I have more seniority than Ron because I think it was the executive committee. The meeting before he became president is the one they put me through. So by one meeting, I have seniority on Ron in the conference. So I'm sticking with that. But we're both newbies to the Ohio Conference in that respect. So here's my disclaimer. At a conference you go to, you would expect the person to disclose anything that they would have a tendency to lead you astray with. Like, for example, if a pharmaceutical company was paying me to sell you a medication, I would have to tell you, they're paying me to sell you a medication. Unfortunately, no one's paying me anything to be here today, so I don't have anything to disclose. But so that you understand my perspective, I am a lifelong Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I'm proud to be a member of the Worthington Seventh-day Adventist Church. And my background is in nursing education. So that's kind of the perspective I bring and the bias I have. All right, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of health ministry as ministry. All right, let's get into it, guys. So my journey and the Worthington Church's journey to becoming an active, vibrant, high-functioning health ministry started about 4 or 5 years ago. Is that when we went to, when did we go to Loma Linda? Anybody that went to Loma Linda? Was that about 4 years ago? About 4 years ago? Give or take? 4 years ago. And I'll more about that in a second. We're going to talk about evangelism the old way and evangelism the new way and how health ministry plays into that. The power that health ministry has in the community, and then my 5 rules for success, to be successful in a health ministry at your church. So I got to tell you that I'm a skeptic by nature. I blame my dad for that. He is a physician and a well-known skeptic, at least to this congregation. Although he lives in Alaska now. So riddle me that. I really think that when I first came into the role with Marge as health coordinator, I had a lot of reservations about some of the things that I perceived going on in the Adventist Church and their scientific validity and reliability. I really don't believe we can be feeding people information unless it's validated and true. There's plenty of things out there that are so important to know that sometimes I think that we start going off on tangents and we finally find ourselves somewhere way, way, way far from where we need to be. And I really believe that as we evangelize the mainstream public, we really need to be square in the center here, teaching them things. There are so many things that our church believes that are so good that we really need to stick there and focus on the things that we know work. A better diet, more water, more fiber, more exercise, things that we know are true, okay? I'm going to talk about our travels to Loma Linda, our first CHIP program. All right, here we go. So our health team, like I said, started about 4 years ago, and we were very excited to get started. And once we were kind of rolling, the first thing we did was we raised some money to purchase automatic external defibrillators, or AEDs, for this building and for across the street where we have a daycare, an academy, and a gymnasium, and a church. So we wanted an AED on both sides of 161, the north side of campus and the south side of campus. After we did that, we started talking about what could we do, how could we grow to make our health ministry more effective. One of our parishioners came to us with something I'd never heard of before, the Complete Health Improvement Project, or at the time, the Coronary Health Improvement Project. It's a project that was spearheaded originally by Hans Diehl, who is a nutritionist and is a PhD or it's a doctor of, he has a doctoral degree, I think, in health and public health. But we went to Loma Linda to be trained, and we were very, very skeptical, I was at least, like I shared with you a minute ago, about the process. And it was through the experience in Loma Linda that myself, my wife, and Marge were trained to come back and do a CHIP program here in Worthington. Our first CHIP program, I think we had 20, 25 people. It was a big group, our biggest one so far. And I got to tell you that over the course of the program, I really saw people's lives changed. And when I say changed, I mean I saw a lady who dropped her cholesterol 90 points. 90 points. No medication. No medication. Simply eliminating cholesterol from her diet and exercising every day. This was a lady whose cholesterol was close to being off the chart. Someone who really needed to get control of her heart disease risks or was going to be facing some very serious health consequences. And this lady was not an Adventist. She was not a member of our church, obviously. She is someone who came and because of CHIP for even at the present, if we had, our alumni association hasn't met in a while, but she was someone who was very active in our CHIP alumni association, and has really a lasting connection to our church now because of her experiences in CHIP. This last bullet, for those of you that are already in healthcare, you know this, but what we do is very reactive. Someone has a stroke, someone has a heart attack, then we come in, we do stents, we do surgeries and procedures, we put them on medications, lots of medications, and then we ship them out. That's how we respond in healthcare. We're not proactive in anything. There's not a whole lot of money in telling you to go to the farmer's market and buy holistic, all natural foods and eat those, because no one's making billions and billions of dollars on that. Not in a cohesive way like they do in the pharmaceutical industry. So a lot of what we do is based on things that happen after the fact. When really what we should be doing is focusing on what we can do to prevent the first heart attack. What can we do to prevent the first stroke? And those are things that are well known, but there's not a lot of money in it. And I think that we have a chance to fix that with how we do our health ministry. This is the verse that really comes to heart. And I used this in a sermon that I gave earlier this year on health and evangelism. On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." I think he's talking directly to us here in this church today. I think what he's saying to all of us is that he is not here to save the saved. He's here to save those who need him. And sometimes in our church, we focus so much on the traditional evangelism. And when I say traditional, I mean like the things I did when I was in middle school. Like I went to the King Cox Crusades. I was active at Net 98. I sang at Net 98 at Andrews. Those tent meeting style evangelistic series often tend to focus on our eschatology. How our eschatology is different than other churches. Yes, if you're Episcopalian or you're Methodist or you're Baptist, look at these little differences between our church, and we can show you in the Bible why our theology and our eschatology is a little bit better than yours, which is true, I personally believe. But to someone who's not churched, it doesn't mean a whole lot to tell them about the visions of Daniel if he's never heard of Daniel, or she's never heard of Daniel, or they have no concept of God or salvation. If they've grown up without God, as most of the world has, then they have no focus point to understand what we're trying to teach them. But in healthcare, everybody wants and understands the need to have a healthy body and have good health. And if we can focus and teach people that we are genuinely interested in them as people, then we can teach them about the love that God has for them. Because God loves them first as a person, before anything else. Before they do anything else, he loves them as his child, right? The unchurched are often concerned about a bait-and-switch theology and a bait-and-switch evangelism, where here's all this stuff, we really want you to join our church. As soon as you join the church, okay, it's time to start paying tithe. And they say, oh, I see what's going on here. You just want me in your church, so I'll give you money. But that's not what God wants. That's not what I want. I would venture to say it's not what Ron wants. We want people to understand that God loves them and he cares about them regardless. Period and end of story. And that's why people would want to come to God. Not because he is a steadfast, hard taskmaster, but someone who genuinely loves them and genuinely wants what's better for them. Amen? All right, that's the difference. That's the difference. That's the power that health ministry has. Because we can meet people where they are, and without a bait and switch, without any expectation that they'll ever come to our church again, we can say, today, I can check your cholesterol and help you be healthier. I can check your sugar to make sure that you're not diabetic. I can help you, let me take your blood pressure and check it, and maybe we can do some things to help improve it. Right today, no cost, no strings attached. I want to help you because God loves you, and I love you, and I want to help you. Okay? That's the power of health ministry. This is some photographs I wanted to share with you from our 10 TV Health and Fitness Expo last year. I don't know if you can really tell, but the bottom left picture there, that is the general booth we had. It was a huge area. I don't know what the charge was. Do you remember what the charge would have been to have that much space, Pastor?
Yes, $20,000.
$20,000. $20,000 to have that space for 2 days. because of some generous people in the conference, because of the conference evangelism office, we're kind of recognizing that this was a huge opportunity, and due to some local donors here in Worthington, we were able to get this space. And when they figured out who we were, because in Indiana they had done the same thing the year before, and the CBS affiliate in Indiana had said to the people in Columbus, when you do your health fair, you call the Adventists. You find out where they are in Columbus and you tell them to come do this, because it was the best, most popular thing at the whole health fair. Okay? So because of that, they gave us a very discounted rate so that we could come. And we were by far the most popular booth throughout the entire weekend. The girl in the center there getting her blood pressure taken is actually one of the interns there at 10 TV. And I think that she's even been on TV a few times as a reporter now, a correspondent for them. And in the bottom left there, you can see one of our physicians here, Dan Jones, who is a neurologist, doing a post-assessment, a post-health fair assessment based on the information garnered from the health fair. There's Marge leading the way there. You can see some of our folks getting processed through our health fair there. There's Mimi, our pastor's wife there. She's doing a cholesterol exam on somebody there. And you can see that a couple of things. I want to point out a couple of things to you just in looking at these pictures. Do you guys notice how everyone working is in uniform? Everyone who's working has the same uniform, the same look. That's very important that when you present to the public, we put on a professional face. That we put on our best foot forward and look professional, because that's what they expect. That's what they're expecting, and that's the seriousness with which we take what we're doing. Anybody can just show up and take a blood pressure, but we want to look professional and be professional, because we are, and that's very important. We'll talk more about that later here. I wanted to share with you some rules for success. These are the rules that I think are, if I could give you as leaders any counsel today about how you can grow your program, these are the 5 things that I would tell you are the most important to remember as you're trying to grow your health ministry. First of all, learn what you can. I can tell you there's a wealth of information, a wealth of health information out there, guys. Some of it is accurate, some of it isn't. Some people will tell you things that are true, and some people will tell you things that are not true, depending on their personal biases. It's your obligation as a health leader to take the time to do the research and to read the literature and find out what is true and what isn't. And promote that to your congregation, to your constituents. So take the time to learn about health, learn about some of the things that are going on right now in the healthy living movement, because there's a whole renaissance going on right now in terms of farmers markets around the country that are coming to life, and people trying to live healthier, more natural lives. President Bill Clinton was one of the biggest proponents of this a few years ago, when after, I think he had a heart attack, he decided to change his lifestyle and basically adopt a chip lifestyle, and lost a lot of weight. And if you look at him now, he looks 10 years younger. He looks younger now than he did when he was 10 years ago, right before his heart attack. And that is because of the changes he made in his exercise. And you all know that he exercised. He was famous for going running every day. But changing what he eats and how he takes care of himself has made a huge difference. And that, about a few years ago, kind of sparked a kind of a revolution in healthy living. So learn what you can. Learn what resources you have. Learn about what's out there, and learn from other people. One recommendation I would have for you is to try to find a mentor. Try to find someone who's out there who you trust, who is doing this, that you can go to and kind of work as a preceptor, preceptee. It's someone you could call and say, hey, this isn't going well for me. Can I ask you about this? And so anyway, learn what you can, find a mentor. Dream big. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that the Lord is sometimes stifled because he wants to do huge things with us. And we're only looking here. We're only looking at a box this big. He wants to give us the whole of Ohio, and we're just thinking about this right here. Don't be afraid to dream big. Right now, my budget is $0.00. To do what I would like to do, to get started, I probably need about $50,000 and about $10,000 to $20,000 a year as a budget to be able to maintain it in Ohio. And I got to tell you that I don't see that happening in the near future. But it doesn't mean I'm not making the plan. If someone were to come up to me right now and offer me that, a $50,000 check, I know exactly what I would use it for. I've already got it laid out. Now, I would encourage you to do the same thing. Dream big. there is a caveat to that. Maybe I'll hit that. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. And that is, dream big, but start small. Dream big, but start where you are. Don't try to take the world on in the first go at it. If you're a small church and you have not as many resources as, say, a Kettering or a Worthington, don't try the first thing out the gate to do a full-on CHIP program. It's a lot of, we'll tell you about that in the next lecture. But maybe it'd be better to start with just an exercise class, or a cooking class, or a full plate diet program. Those are very simple and easy to do. Maybe start fostering relationships with someone at the church or in the community who could teach CPR classes at your church. Or go to the Red Cross and say, I would love our church to be a place where you do blood drives. Because all you have to have for them to come do a blood drive is a facility and the ability to do some snacks for people after they give and do registration for them. They do everything else. So that's another way that you could start thinking about bringing people in and doing things that aren't going to really impact your budget or your resources too much. So dream big, but start small, and then be ready to grow. Make the best plan you can. I got to tell you, it will serve you so well if you take the time to think about things before you do them and really have a good plan laid out. Now, even the best plan has to be changed on the fly at times. So you have to be able to think in the moment and change as you need to during a health event. But make a plan. No one plans to fail, they just fail to plan, right? Make a good plan and have it ready before you get into it. That's part of promoting professionalism within health ministries. Guys, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. Failures are really just a way of saying, well, I tried that, it didn't work like I thought it would, but I'm going to do it differently next time to fix the problem. Failure is only failure if you don't get up again and keep going.
Failure is some feedback.
Yeah. If failure stops you in your tracks, the feedback loop is stopped and nothing else comes of it. That's failure. If you get up again and say, well, that didn't work, but next time I'm going to do this to fix it, that's the difference. That's what success is. So don't let a temporary setback stop you. Keep thinking about what you can do to grow your ministry and try again next time, okay? Be professional. You've probably caught by now that I believe wholeheartedly in professionalism. I really believe that it's important for us to put on a professional face for the public and be able to present them with something that they can feel comfortable with and feel proud of. I don't want the Adventist church to be known as those folks down there who are always kind of and I went to their thing once, but it wasn't really well put together. No one was there. There was no one to open the door, and then they couldn't turn the lights on. And then it's worth taking the time to plan ahead, to be professional, so that people know that we take it seriously. It's important for people to understand that we care about them, and we care enough about them that we took the time to make sure that someone could unlock the door, someone could turn the lights on, someone could make sure the PowerPoint was going to work okay. If you take the time to do those things beforehand, you're telling people when they come to your programs that you care about them enough, you respect them enough to not waste their time, and to make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing. Okay? You guys are doing great. We're almost done. We might get you to break a little bit early. Don't ever tell me when I said that, though. I always go over. Not today, though. Not today. So to summarize what we talked about in this first lecture, why health ministry is ministry. I talked first about my journey as a skeptic to a believer in the health ministry of our church and the programs that it offers and why they work and how they can work. We talked about evangelism the old way. We talked about the opportunities for health ministry to kind of be a new way to reach an unchurched population. A population that may not be as responsive to our traditional tent meeting evangelism. For the folks who don't really have a frame of reference to understand even what the Bible is or what prophecy is. But everyone understands health. It's a good place to start with people, to bring them in. And then we talked about my 5 rules for success. And I think before I hit the break, I want to hit those rules one more time. Learn what you can. Dream big, but start small. Make the best plan you can. Be okay with failure, and be professional. Guys, we're going to take a break. We'll start up again at 10:30. So take some time, walk around. We've been sitting for a while, so it'll probably be a good idea to get up and stretch a little bit. Jennifer, my wife, has gone ahead and set up some snacks from breakfast, and we kind of allocated what we have. So if you'd like to have a snack, that'll be back there for you. And then take a chance to walk outside, get some fresh air, and we'll see you back in 15 minutes. Thank you, guys. they know that your program is going to teach people healthy choices, healthy lifestyle choices. It really be a good way to challenge. And then, if you know your referral source, that will start to grow. And then the other doctors here, well, this doctor's doing that, and that's really great. So,
It's raining. So it's only escape. But it's still fun. can't be wrong. So, Bobby, what's going on? Well, I just you're doing a good job. We have a good Friday program. Like you said, we're going.
Did you come to the concert last night?
No, I was sitting out. I had company in the afternoon.
Did you come to the orchestra concert? That was so good. I really enjoyed that. I wish I could have seen the band too, but yeah.
So are you training to be a Ministries leader?
I guess I can get this and put my water on it. We'll get started here in just a minute, guys. We're still waiting for some people to straggle back in, but we'll get started here in just a minute. There's a lot of pictures in this next one. I'll be looking down at you, Marge, if I forget something about Chip or something, you can tell me. About Chip? Well, during the question and answer, you can give your real opinion. During question and answer, you can give your real opinion, what you really think. I'm really grateful to everybody for coming out today. I know I said that at the start of the last session, but I know you guys are from all over Ohio, and I really appreciate you guys being here today. It's neat to see so many people. And I got to tell you, in the break we just had, I got to meet a few of you and talk a little bit, and I got to say that I really think that the relationship building here is really useful. I really do, and I think we'll all use these relationships as we move forward into the future and start really getting some things done. I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide here. And there'll be a few more people coming in here, but we'll go ahead and get started, guys. So we're going to talk very specifically now about the nuts and bolts. I'm sure up to now some of you have been thinking, I've heard about chip, I've heard full plate, I've heard all these things, but I've not done one, or I know someone who did, or I did this one but not that one. So we're going to drill into all of these different things and talk about what they entail and what they're like. If you have specific questions, go ahead and write them down, because immediately following this lecture, we're going to have a break and set up for our panel discussion where the people who actually do these things will be on the stage, and you can ask any question you'd like about any of the programs. And we'll have people up there to address them. So the verse I picked for this is one from Philippians, and I like this verse. I thought of it last night when I was working on the sermon, or working on this lecture, and I thought, I'm going to put this one in there. And I think the version I memorized, I think, was be confident. But being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. Or Christ Jesus. That was my dyslexia right there. I like this because it's a promise that God has started a work with us, and he's going to complete it. He's going to see us through all the way to the last day of the earth, which means that he is already on our side, and he's going to get our back and be with us as a partner, working with us all the way till the end. And we have a lot of work to do between now and then, and it's good to know that God has promised us he's going to help us see this work through. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. I made a list. I've been working on this list for a while, and I could talk about this stuff for days. So there's just not enough time to give you all the information that I could give you on all these things. So I've tried to pick out the things that I think will be most useful to you as someone who works on a health ministry at a local church. Here's what those things are. We're going to talk first about making a plan for your church, a plan that makes sense. We're going to talk about CHIP, the full plate diet, cooking classes, exercise classes, health fairs, CPR classes, blood drives, and then a few other kinds of odds and ends things that sometimes get dropped because they don't really fall under any particular ministry. Things like emergency preparedness, first aid at your church and school, that kind of stuff. Things that really could be the purview of health ministries, but maybe we do it, maybe we don't. And we're going to talk about a couple of those things that if you're interested in doing it, some things to know or information that might be helpful to you while we do it. So we're going to start with talking about making a plan for your church. You've heard me mention this before. Start small, but dream big. You don't want to start out trying to take on Goliath, although David did. Oh, no, actually that's not true, because David fought off lions and bears. God had prepared him to take on Goliath, right? God's going to prepare you to take on your Goliath. But you got to be able to take care of the bear, you got to be able to take care of the lion first, right? So that's what we're going to start with. You've got to build a team. I can't do what I do by myself. I have a team around me that helps me do what I do. I have an excellent team around me that helps me do what I do. And you get to meet some of them in the next session, actually. But you've got to have a team. You've got to know your resources. Who are the people in your church you could call upon or in your community? Physicians, nurses, paramedics, EMTs, dentists, veterinarians. There's people that have skills in their skill set that could help you, could benefit you when you're doing health ministries. It's important to know who they are and what their ability is to bring to the table things that you need for different events. So get to know your resources. Think creatively about your resources. Think about who's in your church, sister churches in your area, people outside the church that you're familiar with, people from work if you're a nurse, people that you can plug in and use. I use nurses from OSU all the time when we're doing, especially in the old days, because in the old days we didn't have the technology to be able to stick your finger and here's your cholesterol. I would have to set up every CHIP program. I would come in the morning, I would draw every person's blood. I would draw everyone's blood, 20 people plus volunteers sometimes, or more. And then I would take their blood, I'd spin it in a centrifuge here at the church, and then take it down to OSU and drop it off at the lab at OSU. So you can imagine that I would at some point would probably say, wouldn't it be nice to have a few more people doing this besides just me? So I didn't always have people at the church who were proficient enough in drawing blood that I would say, here, just people are going to come in, you're going to draw their blood. I wanted people who really understood it, people who worked in intensive care, people who worked in the emergency room, people who did it every day as a part of their job. And I built a little network of folks who weren't necessarily Adventist, but were able to help me in that part of my health ministry. Another good way to bring people into the health ministry, as if they don't even know that they're being brought in because they're not coming as a participant, they're helping out as a volunteer. It's another great way to network people into your network. So, onward we go. All right, let's start with the big one. The big one, CHIP, the Complete Health Improvement Project. You'll notice that my slide says the program formerly known as CHIP. And that's a little bit of a nod to the fact that CHIP has recently been sold to a group, the Sanitarium in Australia. CHIP began in Loma Linda, California. Dr. Hans Deal, who we talked about earlier, built a program himself, and it was a combination of, I think, 24 lectures. There's 4 weeks of lectures. Do we do 3 a week? 16 lectures. And he built it by himself. It took in all the stuff that he had learned, the research he had done on healthy living, on exercise, on combating some of the major diseases that are killing America: obesity, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, coronary artery disease, and cerebrovascular disease. And he took what he knew and he put it into a lecture program. And that program began to grow over time. So the core of the program were these lectures. But as it grew, he started developing other parts of the program. For example, in a traditional, let's say, Net 98 or Ken Cox evangelism meeting, you come into the Adventist church and you project the meeting on the screen. Now, he wanted a more interactive experience. So instead of sitting in pews or in rows, people sat in table groups with a table group leader. So you have someone at the table who's a facilitator in a small group. And in a big meeting, you could still have several small groups of people having a small group atmosphere with a leader and still have a larger group participating. He also developed the component of bringing meals or snacks, but really meals, into the program too. So people would come to their evangelistic series, if you will, and there would be a meal provided. They would have a healthy meal that evening and sit with a table group and watch the presentation. They're also then developed before and after testing, right? Because you want to see if this is actually working. So everyone who was in the program, before the program started, you draw their cholesterol, you draw LDL, HDL, triglycerides, you do blood pressure, bone density or body mass index, and weight, before and after, for every participant. Are you starting to see how in-depth this is? This isn't just like a, come watch Net 98, we're going to put it on the screen. This is that, plus a whole bunch more. This is plus blood sugar, or blood draws, and meals every night, and table group leaders. It's huge amount of resources to try to put on a CHIP program. Okay, that's where CHIP was about 4 or 5 years ago. It had grown and grown and grown and became a formalized, organized program facilitated out of Loma Linda, California. Now, as Hans shared with us when he was here last time, he came to the place in his career, I think I can share this, because he shared it with a group. He shared it with a big group of alumni of CHIP. And he said, you know what, I came to retire, and he's been self-employed in his own practice and his own group for years and years and years. Didn't really have a retirement saved up. So when the opportunity came, an interested party came and said, we'd like to take CHIP and take it to the next level. He sold the program, and the program is now facilitated by the Sanitarium in Australia. Now, the Sanitarium and its corporation are mainly like a health food company, much like Worthington Foods, or really more like Kellogg's. In fact, it was one of the Kellogg cousins who, you had Kellogg's here in the United States making Kellogg cereal. Well, one of the cousins went to Australia and did the same thing in Australia. That's the group who now owns and runs CHIP. They've updated all the videos, the material has been updated. The program has been changed. Now, in the old days, the way CHIP would work is you would say, I would like to do CHIP. So to do CHIP, you have to have a trained facilitator. And in our church, that meant sending 3 of us on an airplane to California to be trained. Now, they do training sessions around the country, but I don't think they've done one here in Ohio, except maybe at Ohio University, because Ohio University is now in charge of CHIP for all of southeast Ohio. And they run CHIP for all the constituents down there, and the whole area goes to Ohio University to do CHIP. So you would find a facilitator and get them trained. Once you had a trained facilitator, they could come back to your church and were then allowed to facilitate the program. You would have to buy the DVDs, which ran several $100s, $400 or $500 to purchase the program, the CDs. Then the participants would pay a fee to get the registration, and you would, as a facilitator, would have to figure out, well, how much is it going to cost me to provide 4 meals a week for 4 weeks, or 3 meals a week for however long you do it? How much is it going to cost me to do all the other things that I have to do? Have volunteers come in, maybe even have their blood sent to a lab, have a lab draw company come in and take people's blood and process it. And so you have to have all of that orchestrated and built into your fees. And you could then decide how much you wanted to charge people. Some churches found CHIP to be a way to help their budget because they would be able to make a little bit of money off of the fees that they would charge. Okay, that's CHIP as it existed 5 years ago. That brings you up to speed on how it existed and how it came into being and what it was. Once it was sold, everything kind of changed. The vision, and I got to tell you that today, in April of 2014, we're kind of living in between where it was and where it's going to be. The vision for the future is everything will be online. I mean, everything like the videos are online, streaming video, so you have to have the ability to stream video to wherever you're going to do your program. The participants don't really send you a check anymore. They send it to CHIP in Australia, and there's a set fee that they want you to charge. Now, like I said, we're kind of living in a limbo between how it was and how it's going to be. So there's still some flexibility on those things. But the idea is, this is how much you charge. They pay it online. The money goes to Australia. They send them their books. They take care of the registration. All of the follow-up and stuff and all of their record keeping can all be done online. They can have their own profile where you can see before and after results, and it's all on the computer. In the world before, where Marge and I took over, everything was on paper. Marge and I would sit after their evaluation, and we would go through and give them all their numbers and say, you probably should drink more water. You probably should exercise more. You probably should try to get more sleep at night. You should probably stop smoking. You probably shouldn't drink alcohol like you do. And those recommendations would be what they would use to build their program, or to decide how they wanted to change their lifestyle to improve their health. Now, it's easy enough when you have 2 master's degree nurses and physicians and other people helping us out, but for a small church with maybe 100 people that, in attendance, how are you going to find someone who can be qualified to be able to do this kind of facilitation? A lot of that's been taken out. They've really tried to make CHIP more user-friendly and more standardized. Okay? Anything else you want me to hit on that, Marge, in general? Okay. So let's talk about CHIP and what I have on the slide here. So the program is very resource intensive, even under the new version. Now, you don't have to do meals every night, but part of the program that really makes it successful is that every night you're coming and you're getting a healthy dinner, and you start to learn about how to cook and how to eat and what you should prepare and how it should be prepared. That whole piece of it's a very important part. Now, of course, that means more resources. It means someone who can run the kitchen, someone who can, cook and make sure you've got enough food for everybody. There's a lot that's involved in CHIP if you want to do it really the way it needs to be done. There are high setup costs. I mean, you may have to figure out how to stream video where you are. You have to purchase the program. How much is it now, Marge, to purchase? $800? $850. And every time you do CHIP in a year, the price goes down, and eventually you can do it for free once you've paid them enough money. So there's a high startup cost. That may not be the best option for a small church unless you could partner with other churches. Where you're seeing CHIP really being done now is in hospitals and universities. Well, they'll purchase the program and say, CHIP is now our cardiac rehab program, or CHIP is our diabetes education program, and they just buy it and they do it for everybody who gets an open heart. If you get an open heart, congratulations, you're going to our CHIP program for the next 2 months. And so that's really where you're seeing it grow. We talked about the updated content. It does have proven long-term results. I mean, people really do, if they choose to do the program, can remarkably change their lives. They can lose weight, and I don't mean losing weight like in a quick, like, look, I lost 50 pounds kind of way, but in a very steady, slow, healthy way, where every month they're losing 3 or 4 pounds over time. We don't gain weight typically very, very, very quickly. We kind of gain it over our lifetime. So what you're trying to do then in CHIP and many of these programs is kind of, instead of saying every year I'm going to gain 2 pounds, and I'm going to gain 2 pounds, and then I'm just going to continue on ad nauseum. The idea here is that you could change your lifestyle so that you lose a little bit every year, so that in 10 years, you'd have a completely transformed health outlook. And there's some very, very good testimonials and online resources where you can see people that have lost weight, that have regained functionality, whose kidney function has improved. I mean, lots of folks have had, we even had experience in our program where people had to reduce or eliminate diabetes medication once they started really doing CHIP. In fact, we tell people, if you're going to do CHIP is very intense. If you decide to go all in, you have to meet with your physician. Because if you're on high blood pressure medicine, and then 2 or 3 weeks in, suddenly your blood pressure is half of what it was, you're going to need to stop some of those blood pressure medicines. You're going to have a blood pressure that's sitting down here. So it's very important that physicians, the participants' physicians are involved in the process, because you can see cholesterols drop remarkably, weight lost, and diabetes medications, insulin reduced or stopped. And that's common. That's not every program. We see people in that situation. All right, CHIP. That's CHIP. It's good, it's expensive, it takes a lot of resources, but it's good. Full plate diet. Now the way the full plate diet is set up, and I still call it full plate diet, but I think now it's called the full plate lifestyle or the full plate living or full plate living. I don't know why, if you have a New York Times best-selling, well-known branding, you'd want to change that branding, because the book is so well known. I mean, it's been featured on television and all kinds of people talking about superfoods. You can even go to the supermarket now and they'll have superfoods labeled. So I don't know why you'd want to change that branding, because it's very popular. But
the book was the bestseller, New York bestseller in 2010.
So in 2010, it was the best-sold book in the United States or the world. I don't know where they get in the States, where they do that marketing. All right. So what is the full plate diet? The full plate diet is a book club. That's the best way to think of it. You buy the book. It's lower cost than CHIP. I think the book in the packet's maybe $30, $40. You buy, and it comes with a book, workbook, audio book on CD, so you can listen to it in the car if you don't have time to read it. And the way it's set up is you have a facilitator, and it's like a book club. You go home, you read the chapter, you come in a small group, kind of Bible study kind of way, and you talk about it. Now, they have the whole thing laid out, and we have copies of the program out in the back if you want to see how it looks. The facilitators have a script. Everything that you would have to say for the entire program is written out in a book for you, a script. And you literally turn to page 1, it says, page 1, first night. Welcome, my name is, say your name, Dan Thorward. I'm glad you're all here tonight at the Full Plate Diet. Ha ha ha. Let's share something about ourselves. And so, the fear that we have of, the fear that a lot of people have of having to come up with content and material is sort of taken out of the process. You just give everyone the book, they all purchase the book, there's no licensing fee. You just have them all come to your church, and you can meet every night for, is there 8 nights? 8 nights. Or you could do it once a week or twice a week. And you can do it in a big group and a small group. We did it, when we did it the last time, we had a big group meeting a bunch of times, and we didn't think it was as effective as if we'd had a big group together at one time, and then we would break into small groups, kind of like CHIP. We have a larger group in CHIP, but they're in small table groups. So you could have people come in, and we'd have different facilitators facilitating smaller, sort of like Bible study or small group study kind of things. So the content is written out for you. It's very easy just to read the script, and the things that you need to do it are simple. Like, I think one night you have to bring paper plates, and there's a night we have to bring a trash can, so you can throw a piece of paper in the trash can. I mean, it's very, very, very simple. All pre-done for you. It's sizable, scalable, so you can scale it up or scale it down. This is a good place to start if you haven't already been doing health ministries at your church. You have an upcoming event, or you want to come up with something you could do that is professional and looks good, has got good name recognition in the community. This is a good one to start with. We had been, at least on paper, we've been trying to alternate programs. So like we would do a CHIP program in the fall, and in the spring we would do a full plate diet. Mostly to give our CHIP volunteers a rest, because to do CHIP more than once a year is monumental for the people that have to work in the kitchen, the people that have to take care of all the details. So this is a good way to give people a rest in between CHIP programs and still offer a really good resource to the community. This is also a good gateway drug to get people into CHIP. So if you have people who are just kind of like, I want to be healthy and I want to learn more about it, this is a great first step into that world. That then once you've got them and they're really interested in trying to live healthier lives, that then you could say, well, next up we have a CHIP program. And the CHIP program is a sort of a next step. There is training for volunteers. I think we did a training at our church for the whole state of Ohio, didn't we? People from all over the state, Adventist, non-Adventist, came here, and the author of the book showed up here, and she did a training for everyone who wanted to be trained in how to do it. We could probably look at doing that again at some point if we wanted to, if you all would like to be trained in it, if you're not already. All right, moving on. So that's full plate diet. All right, cooking classes. A very, very popular option because a lot of folks know us as not the cooking church. A lot of people think of Seventh-day Adventists as the Seventh-day Adventist vegetarian church. They know that a lot of us are vegetarian. So when we offer cooking classes, there's already a little buzz in the community about the Adventists. And, oh, they're teaching a cooking class. Well, they're good cookers because they're vegetarians. Let's go see what they do. I find and have found that cooking classes seem to create a bigger buzz than a lot of what other things we've tried. We used to have a thing in our church called the Fabulous Vegetarian Food and Health Fair that was over in our gymnasium across 161 on the north side of our campus. And it was very, very popular. People from all over Worthington would come. They'd get a free cookbook. They could see cooking demonstrations. And then we'd have a small health fair going on at the same time where they could get their blood pressure checked and that kind of stuff too. It's scalable. It doesn't take up, there's no licensing fees or anything like that. It just takes someone who's willing to do it, and you can scale it up or scale it down. Right now there's a program going on at Eastwood, and it's scalable too because they're also offering kind of like a seminar series with it as well. So you might have a cooking demonstration and then a lecture that night as well of something that's going on related to healthy eating. And it's a really good draw for the community. In fact, I'm speaking at it later this month, which I'm very excited about. So this is a really good program. It's a great thing to follow up a health fair with. If someone's at the health fair and they want to learn more, it's great to be able to say, well, come next week. We're having a cooking class at our church. We'd love to see you there. And so this is a great option too for people that want to do something that's not as expensive and easier to get started. That's a good picture. So exercise classes are really a good thing too. Something I would say about it though, it really is important that you can find someone who is a professional to be able to facilitate your classes. Now, when I say that, you don't have to find someone who's going to charge you and come in and like, I'm going to run my private studio here in your church. That's not what I'm talking about. It's nice to find someone who has coaching experience or someone who's got some experience in health. At our church, our leader there is on the left, giving us the big bicep there. That's Kwame, and he is a personal fitness instructor and a personal trainer. He comes here and works pro bono, and just pro bono, is that free, honey? Where's my Latin checker in the background? All right. He comes and he facilitates the class. He does have people sign a waiver for his own liability, but it's a very low impact. Usually it involves a light stretch, some light cardio, and then another stretch. It's great for people of all ages. As you can see, we've got people even in wheelchairs coming to our class and exercising with us. So if you can find someone to do it, it's low cost. People are often used to paying to go to exercise classes, so it's a good way if you want to raise money for something like the Sabbath school, something or other. You could say, bring $1, bring $2 if you'd like, and throw it in the pot, and that's an ongoing way to raise money too in a small way, because people are used to paying $30, $40, $50, $60, $100 a month to go to some of these fitness clubs to exercise. What an opportunity though to have it here at our church. It fosters fellowship. I like that about this because it's a chance outside the traditional, we're going to meet to talk about church, or we're going to meet to talk about the Sabbath school lesson. Those things are good too, but this is a chance for us to, outside that sort of context, to get together in fellowship as Christians. And that really is an advantage to this program. And it's also a great thing for many age groups. You'll find kids, or when I say kids, I mean people in their late teens and 20s, young adults, people who are more advanced in age, that all want to come together to kind of have a chance to exercise. I hope people show up today. because that's a lot of fun. Okay, health fairs. Health fairs can range in size from, we have a table where we're going to check people's blood pressure, all the way up through more complicated sort of fairs like the one that we did in downtown Columbus. Let me go over this little thing right here, the New Start. New Start is an acronym that is used for a specific kind of health fair that was kind of facilitated and grown. There's a Scandinavian company in Norway, I believe, that are very, that are kind of the generators of this particular health fair method. And they produce banners and all kinds of things. There's also a group in the United States who does the same thing. But the idea is you talk about nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance. What's the second R, Lulu? What's the second A? Rest, air, rest, and trust in God. And trust in God. So basically you'd have stations set up in this acronym. You'd have a station to talk about nutrition, and a station to talk about exercise, and a station to talk about water. Now, in reality, when we do it, it's a little more streamlined because of how many people we try to get through. And we do kind of associate a station, we do have a water station, for example, but the temperance station may not, I mean, it may not just be a table where we sit down and talk to you about don't drink alcohol and don't smoke. It may be built into something else like, say, pulmonary function, where we're testing people's lungs, so that we could say, you know, maybe if these results aren't as good as you want, you know, do you smoke? Are you a smoker? Well, that can affect the results of this test. You typically see people that don't smoke to have better scores or better test results than those who do. So that's what New Start is. But I don't want you to think that there's only one way to do a health fair, because you can do health fairs at any size, at any scale, any shape, and I'm sure Lulu can speak to this during the panel discussion. We used to have, like I said, a health fair here, and we had mammograms offered. We had all kinds of screenings. People would come in from hospitals, and we would host it here in the gymnasium, or maybe we did one over here too in the activity center, or in the fellowship hall. But the point is, you can be a participant and go to a health fair and have a booth for your church, or you can try to host one. Again, start small and dream big. If you've never done this before, it's probably better to go to a community event in your community and set up a table from your church and offer blood pressure screenings, which takes very little resources, rather than saying, we're going to host our first ever health fair, and it's going to be here, and we're going to have the fire station, the hospital, and that's a great dream, and I want you to have that dream. But it may be best to start with a table at a community event, and then maybe next year you do 4 tables, and then the year after that you have it in your church fellowship hall. The idea is you got to start where you're at and dream big and build from there. It is advantageous. It is not. I don't like the word require here. It's advantageous to have professionals in your congregation who can really help you out. Nurses, physicians, paramedics, all those people we talked about before, because they're the experts, and they're the ones who can really bring to bear some really good resources to your event. At the event here in Columbus, like I said, at the end of the event, everyone who went through all the stations could meet with a physician or a nurse practitioner at the end. Now, not every church is going to be able to say, well, I've got 10 physicians and 5 nurse practitioners who can just show up and help us with that. But that's where, if you start to build relationships in your community and get to know people, your sister churches, maybe together with another church, you could get together and have the resources you need to do something on this scale. We already talked about the health fair from last year, that we screened almost 800 people, and that this year we'd like to screen 1,000. CPR classes, another great outreach to the community. The nice thing about CPR classes is if you invest in the mannequins and you have someone who can teach the classes, you can do them anywhere. You can do them at your church and bring people from the community into your building and advertise them and saying, hey, we're doing classes here. Come on in and we'll train you in CPR. Or you can take your show on the road, as it were, and go to different churches and buildings and groups that need it done. We do this here at our church. I'm the CPR instructor, and I do it here at the church for our parishioners, probably once or so a year. And then we also do it, I teach it for the school, for the daycare, for all the staff there. This is another one of those things, kind of like CHIP, where you can say, hey, I'd be happy to provide this to you for $50. The going rate out there in the world is probably closer to $100 to be able to do a class for CPR. But I got to tell you that for me, the cost I have, now that we own the mannequins here at the church, OSU charges me $7.50 to print a card. So that's the only expense I have. I have never charged for our classes here. If people want to donate to the health ministry program here at the church, they can, but we always offer it to them at cost just to provide the service. But it's something else that you could think about. And honestly, you don't even have to have a CPR instructor in your congregation. I guarantee you that if you're willing to purchase the mannequins for, I don't know, a few $100s, that you would be able to find someone in the community, because the hardest problem is finding the mannequins. If you can find the mannequins, all it takes then is plugging someone in, a lifeguard, a nurse, someone who's gone through and gotten their certification to teach CPR, you're good to go. You should also know too, for those of you that don't live in the healthcare world, there are lots of ways to do CPR, lots of organizations that provide CPR training, not just American Heart. The Red Cross, the National Safety Council, there's also private organizations that certify CPR. So you should look around and see in your community what's being done, and then it's another easy way you can add stuff and add another ministry to your ministry. Blood drives. Blood drives seem overwhelming, but really, in terms of what you would need to do one, is it's a relationship with the American Red Cross in your area, and you can call them and say, we'd like to host a blood drive, and they will take you up on it. I promise they will. You need to have physical space, and you need to have just a few volunteers, like maybe 3 or 4. One or two that can register people, and they'll train you how to do that. And then at the end of the donation process, there's a canteen where people can sit down and have a little snack, kind of get themselves back, their energy back after donating blood. And you need a couple people to staff and man that table. And that's really the only volunteer work that you would have to put forth to be able to do this. It's a great way to get people from the community into your church. Because it brings people from all over. There are people out there that are constantly donating blood because they really want to be able to contribute something that we all need, an important resource in an emergency. And so if you do the program at your church, you can bring people in from all over to come and see your facility and get to know where you're located in your community. You do have to have adequate space. I mean, that is one thing. You do have to have enough room. The size of our activity center down here, I'm sorry, I keep saying activity center, but our fellowship hall where we had our breakfast served, that area is about the right size. You can get by a little bit smaller than that, but if you have a fellowship hall, or a school gymnasium, or a school cafeteria area, that's about the space you would need to be able to facilitate a blood drive. Other health-related projects. I told you all that one of the first things we did here when we started our new health ministry was to purchase automated external defibrillators. But some other things that kind of fall off the radar. First aid and first aid supplies. You know, those of you that have schools and daycares, Sabbath schools, you know, sometimes who takes care of making sure that there is a first aid kit with Band-Aids or maybe even a blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope, those kinds of basic things? Is it the pastor? Is there an elder who does it? That's something that could fall under the realm of health ministry, but we don't always take ownership of it as health ministry people. But that's something that certainly could fall under your domain as health ministries director. Emergency response plan. I don't want to step on the toes of my colleagues from Adventist Community Services. And for those of you that aren't aware, in the United States, ADRA doesn't respond to our disasters. In the United States, it's actually Adventist Community Services, or ACS. In the United States. Outside the United States, it's usually ADRA. But inside the United States, it's Adventist Community Services who will respond during an emergency. But as a health ministry director, it's a good idea at some point during your year just to kind of sit down and say, if there were a disaster in our town, what would it be? Like in Columbus, I would think at this location where we have a major railroad that runs right through here, carrying all kinds of stuff all the time. So we've got that right there. There's an airport for Ohio State that's just right over there, and there's constantly planes landing this direction. Think about those things that are in your physical area, the kinds of things that could theoretically happen, and say to yourself, if there were some kind of disaster, tornado, whatever it be, what would my church be able to do to respond? It usually takes 24 to 48 hours to get resources on the ground from outside the community, and that's fastest possible response. So you're going to be looking at from time zero to the time that real definitive help is on scene, probably a day or 2 days. So it's a good idea to look at your facility and say, do we have a generator? What happens if power goes out? Do some of our buildings have electricity? At our church here that we're in today, there is actually a cell phone tower in the steeple here. And because of that, the telecommunication requirements require that they have backup power to be able to power that facility in the case of an emergency. So even when power goes out to the city, we still have power in our building here. We still have some power. We can plug things in and do things. So it's worth looking at what your resources are and kind of say to yourself, you know, what could I do? Do we have water on hand? Do we have first aid supplies? What would our church's role be? Would it be could we triage people if there are injuries? Or would it be more of a, let's just get together and have a prayer service? All of those things are things you should think about beforehand, before something happens. And again, this really falls under the auspices of Adventist Community Services, but I think we as health ministry directors have a hand in this too. And we should be one of the people at the table talking about this. So please keep that in mind and think about it as you go back to your churches and what your church resources are and what would you like your role to be in a community disaster. Those kinds of things, when they happen, are huge opportunities for us to put ourselves out there. Because if the Adventists were ready, come on guys, if anyone should be ready, it should be the Adventist church. I mean, that's like what we're built on. We're built on being ready, right? That's how we started. We started by saying we're ready. So when those things happen, we should be the ones to say, there's nowhere else open? Well, come on in. We'll be happy to put down cots. We actually have some cots ready for this very purpose. So think about that. Wouldn't it be nice to be known in the community as the ones that are ready? And wouldn't that be nice with our specific message to the world that we're ready? Let's Move Day. Let's Move Day is a North American division initiative to get people out and get people moving. It's once a year, and last year what we did at our church was we went to Antrim Park, which is a park just probably about a mile or 2 miles from here, straight line. And we had a walking. We had a group walking, we had a group jogging. I think they may have done bicycles too. There was a couple people that were biking. We also had a bounce house set up for the kids here on this campus so the kids could get out and move. It's an initiative that, like I said, it's from the North American Division. Lots of resources on the North American Division Health Ministries site. So if this is something you want to do, you can decide to do it, and all it would take on your part is to print out the literature and then say, okay, come meet on this day, we're going to go for a walk around the church. And that's all you'd have to do to be able to do it. All right. Whew. All right. So here's what I want to leave you with. That's a lot of stuff. There's probably at least 10 things that we just talked about, different programs. A real active, vibrant health ministry takes on more than just one of these things. 2 or 3 or 4. Actually, I think almost everything on that list is something our church has done or is doing. The idea here is to pick those 1 or 2 things that you can start small with and then have a dream. Where would you like it to grow to? Okay? So as your church ministry grows, maybe you start out with just offering a cooking class once a year. And then after that's established, maybe the next year then you add in an exercise class. Maybe then also in the fall, every fall you start a full plate diet program. The point being that you have it within your resources to say, what can I do today and where can I be tomorrow? And that's how you build a really active, healthy, growing health ministry. Now, I hope that over the course of these last 2 lectures, you've got some questions, things you want to talk about it. Because when we come back from a break, we're going to have a panel discussion, and we're going to have some leaders from the Central Ohio area who have worked on all of these kinds of projects. And I want there to be a chance for you all to ask questions so we can address some of them and hopefully give you some answers to some of those things you're still curious about. After that, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll get set up, come back here for a closing, and then we'll have lunch. So at this time, we'll go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and we'll meet right back here in 15 minutes for our panel area discussion. Thank you, guys.